This episode of Marketing Mavericks, we talk about auto racing, the North American International Auto Show in Detroit, and Sir Richard Branson's Extreme Tech Challenge. This and more coming up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
Bandwidth for Marketing Mavericks
This
is provided
is
by
Twitch.
Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of Marketing Mavericks is brought to you by Squarespace. Creating and editing your website is easier than ever using their redesigned interface, Squarespace 7, which includes integrations with Getty Images and Google Apps, beautiful new templates, and more. Try the new Squarespace at squarespace.com and enter offer code MM at checkout to get 10% off. And by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/MM. This is Marketing Mavericks, episode 38, recorded Thursday, January 15th, 2015. Marketing on the Track. Welcome to Marketing Mavericks. My name is Tonya Hall, and I'm your host, where we talk about everything at the intersection of marketing and technology. Today, it's all about automotive, whether it's what's coming out, Tesla, Ford, Chevy, the new technology, smart cars, and the sharing economy around automotive. We're going to talk about millennials, how we're targeting younger people with marketing and how that industry is changing. We've also are going to talk about race cars, and we have a couple of guests with us today in studio, which I know is not normal for us, but I'm super excited to have Kim Mcnicholas here. Kim is the executive director of Extreme Tech Challenge. Thanks for being with us, Kim.
Thank you.
And Colette Davis, who is a pro race car driver and co-founder of Tech Drive. Welcome, Colette.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so honored to have these two ladies with me today. And, you know, if you missed the pre-show, you'll have to tune in live next time. We spent quite a bit of time talking about our technical director, Anthony Nielsen.
And now all the girls, they say on the message boards. It says
Apparently
on the boards,
they're looking for you on Tinder now.
Exactly.
So you're welcome.
Sorry, ladies, I'm taken.
Welcome.
Yes, Tina is
taken.
the most amazing woman in the entire world. I love Tina. His wife is just as sweet as he is.
Well, I think she's probably about the only one that can handle him. He's a pistol. No, I'm just kidding.
Let's keep moving along.
Let's keep moving along. So we're just coming back from the show in Detroit. The big announcements from the North American International Auto Show, and you were there, right?
Well, I've been following everything that's happening.
Good.
Going on over in Detroit. Still going on.
It's still going on. In fact, so you and I had talked about quite a bit before the show. I want to talk about kind of the highlights, what people are talking about, what the big takeaways are, and how that's changing marketing. You know, I mentioned to you, Kim, that we've had Ford Motor on the show before. We've talked about automotive. We've actually talked about racing, which is a completely different type of marketing. But let's talk about the auto show itself. So Ford seems to be the most talked about from the show. Why is that?
Well, it really is. I think, one, it starts with the Ford's new GT supercar. I mean, absolutely amazing. I mean, it is eye-catching with its laser blue carbon fiber, completely blinged out with everything you'd expect in an amazing supercar. You know, it's rear-wheel drive align configuration, and it's completely sleek and just beautiful. But what's really interesting is it doesn't have the typical, V8 engine. It has the V6 EcoBoost V6, and still 600 horsepower, turbochargers, amazing. But I think when it hits the market, it's going to be a little watered down, and people may be a little disappointed. But in terms of the auto show and what it's all about marketing and making things blingy and beautiful, and let's catch everybody's eyes.
Who's their target audience? Who do you think they're targeting with this vehicle?
I really actually think that they're targeting the millennials. I think that they want to make things really exciting for them. All the latest and greatest in technology. A lot of cars out there that I'm seeing, they're all putting in hotspots. in the cars. And I think that that's going to catch the attention of millennials as well.
I think so. I think certainly the Wi-Fi, the technology, but something that I want to get to is a whole evolution of not even buying a car. I want to talk about what that means in a bit, and we'll go back to that. So Tesla, Chevy, Chevy's actually coming out now with they're kind of beating Tesla a little bit to
And I know, and Colette and I were talking about this actually before the show as to the reason why they're coming out with the Bolt and they're doing it now. And I'm just am not impressed with the Bolt. I think it's purely just to be in compliance with the federal government and to get their subsidies and to simply beat Tesla, which is expected to come out with its cheaper version, the $35,000 Tesla, probably in the next 2 years.
But my thinking is the person that's in the market for a Chevy, and I've done a lot of automotive. I've worked for an agency where we actually worked in automotive. About 90% of our customers were dealers or auto manufacturers. And that's a totally different type of marketing. And typically you do have a lot of brand loyalty. I would imagine that the person that's interested in buying a Tesla, just because the Chevy's available sooner, isn't necessarily going to buy a Chevy. Or am I wrong? I mean, are you going to buy a Chevy if you were really in the market for a Tesla?
No.
Well, and I think
Absolutely
it's just
not.
the price range is different. So you're going to be going after a different demographic, different lifestyle. I mean, maybe there's someone right now that would love to be green, love to buy a Tesla, but can't really afford the price tag that's on it now. So this could be an easier option for them to get their hands on sooner than later.
Well, and they're not going to have to wait either. I mean, they can actually do it now, like you said. But I don't know. I think there are some people that will just hold out. I mean, it's brand loyalty, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, there definitely will be. If someone already has a Tesla and wants to get another one, or is waiting for one just as it's Tesla, and they have such a great brand right now, I think they definitely will wait. But we're going to see a bunch of manufacturers getting into the EV game. I mean, even Mary Barra has said that the future of motoring is a huge pillar of that is going to be electric, and EVs are going to be that. And I think that's why they're taking this step with the Bolt and the Volt. But I think since the Bolt actually has more mileage, better than any other EV aside from Tesla that's out there right now, I think that's kind of the impressive thing, at least with that launch.
I think the industry is changing, not just because the technology is changing with the vehicles, but how we get people to buy products and we get them interested. And we've seen so many changes in kind of the sharing economy, and people aren't buying vehicles that they would have bought before. What are some of those trends? How is that coming through to manufacturers? Was this a part of the conversation in Detroit, or no?
Well, I think that it's obviously on the top of their minds. That's why they're coming out with a lot of really sparkly, blingy, trying to catch everybody's attention.
Yeah, I mean, right now, they probably wouldn't address it as something that is supposed to be unveiling like new cars. Is obviously they want you to feel like you need the latest and the greatest, and make those changes. But they're having to face that the sharing economy is taking over, collaborative economy. Like, that is what's hot right now. That's what's growing, and that's what's growing other countries as well. So you see startups like Shift and Bleepy that are really targeting that used car market, because it's growing out of control right now. And I think you will see manufacturers start to get involved in that game. Start to take back some of their cars and work with dealerships more, so that they can profit from it.
Well, and I do think we've probably seen a dent. And I know back in the, several years ago when I think Ford was leading the pack on shifting their marketing spend. I think the first time I had interviewed Ford, Scott Monty, when he was there, was that they were the first ones to say, okay, we're going to take 25% of our marketing budget and push it into digital, specifically social media, and try to engage. They launched vehicles on Facebook. Okay, this is the brand new car that we have. Is social media still a part of that? Because millennials really, I mean, not to say that they aren't using Facebook, but they're using, Instagram, they're using Snapchat. They're not using social media the way that they were maybe even 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Does that impact maybe the decision? I mean, do we really buy a car because we saw it launch on Facebook? Or, I mean...
I don't think they make a decision just based on seeing it on Facebook. I think it's about creating the brand loyalty and relating and being relevant to their particular audience. If they're going to reach the millennials, they can't just put out a standard commercial. They can't just put out a post that says, buy me. They need to create a viral video. They need to create content. And that's what I tell all startups today, whether it's an auto manufacturer or any other company, is that you need to become a content company and then incorporate your brand into it. You can't just push a commercial out there. You can't just sell a product. It needs to be something that people not just want to watch, but they want to share. And they're not going to share just a post that says, buy this car.
Right.
I'm surprised it was actually only 25%. I mean,
well, they did move that up. That was, I think, the first year, and they saw such huge success. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think even automotive companies especially, but any company needs to be in digital to reach people and to tell their stories and be relevant, like Tim said. And, you know, it's even harder for automotive companies as they're selling a much bigger ticket item.
Right.
I mean, this isn't like any other company that may have a $100, $50 product. But for them, they're going to really have to find some way to connect and convince people that what they have isn't good enough and they need to buy something new.
Well, and it's funny that you say that too, because again, going back to this collaborative economy, used cars, certainly they're not buying new cars. They're a little more frugal, or they're using products like Uber or Lyft or something like that. To get around. And, you know, there was a time, and I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but where you felt like you would, if your family was loyal to a certain brand, everybody in my family's had a Ford, everybody's had a Chevy, or this is what we do. Millennials don't think that way. They actually think quite the opposite. So brand loyalty based on how it's always been is completely shifting. And I think manufacturers are having to shuffle to keep up with that.
And what's interesting is that they're really struggling right now with reaching this millennial audience, because the millennial audience is all about how to become more productive. How do we become more effective? How can I spend more time tweeting and Facebooking and emailing and engaging in content online? And so there's a company called Wanderoo, which actually just got some sort of innovation award for top website of 2014. It's an online bus and train travel booking site, and they're huge with millennials that are turning more to bus and train travel versus driving a car or buying a car, because they can sit there with their hotspot on the train or the bus and get more work done.
I love taking the bus when it's got Wi-Fi. I'm thinking, why would you drive to the airport? Take the bus. It's got Wi-Fi.
You can sleep, catch a few extra Z's.
I'm just saying. Not have to deal with the traffic. Certainly not in the same way. And those bus drivers, they can get you there in a hurry. No kidding. Okay, so what else was big from the show? I mean, what else did you follow and find was kind of a surprise, or was that it?
I think literally the biggest gamble that was taken, I actually think in the entire history of automotive was really also with Ford, not to just pimp Ford. I apologize for that. But you have to admit, you can't ignore the F-150, the aluminum body. Huge risk out there. I mean, 26 miles per gallon. I mean, that's pretty huge. Having the aluminum body, it cuts out about 700 pounds off this truck. But I think in terms of marketing, it looks great. They're going to have a great set of first adopters that are going to say, I just want this new cool truck. I want to see how it runs. But in terms of the mass market, people are going to question the durability, and they're going to question whether or not it's truly safe.
Well, and that would be my first question. Is it safe? I mean, and not that people, wouldn't try it out, but I don't know.
Well, and I think the marketing angle will be interesting to see where they take it, because Ford is always known for those, really dirty, grungy, muscular commercials that say, American truck, and we're pulling stuff. So we'll see if they market it differently, and maybe it doesn't have as much pulling capacity as some of their other trucks have, or, it'll be very interesting to see their marketing angle with that.
Well, I think that the messaging, to your point, is going to be really key. The messaging is changing, because not that we're really using vehicles differently, but we're thinking differently about our transportation. So it was before, it's, they're tough, they can handle it, and to your point, they're not as,
and they're going to struggle going across the Golden Gate Bridge with the new barrier. So it's smaller vehicles. That's where I think the Chevy's Bolt will actually come in and truly dominate, because when you're talking 6 inches off that center lane there, I don't know about that F-150 if they're going to struggle going across the bridge.
I didn't even know they did that until I drove over it this morning, and I was like, because I always drive on the fast side, but then you're always right there on the border, and it's a big difference.
I am not driving in that lane anymore.
Not driving in the fast lane? What? Okay. Well, okay. So that gets me to this idea of so was that pretty much it? Does that pretty much wrap up the auto show? Is there any final takeaways?
I think Honda.
Yeah, I think Honda, they came into the Detroit week really bold by just stating that, 2015 is, apparently going to be the year of the Honda. And, their fuel cell concept car was, really interesting and got a lot of attention. But they also made the announcement that they are going back into Formula One racing, which, came as maybe a shock to some people. And, they teamed up with McLaren, and they'll now be powering the McLaren race cars. And, they haven't been in Formula One since 2008. They've continued to be an IndyCar. So, we'll see if that affects their marketing that much, if they're going to put a lot of resources into promoting that program or not. But, it's always great to see more manufacturers getting involved in Formula One, IndyCar, rallycross, whatever it may be. But, we'll see where they take it this year.
Very good. Well, let's talk about race cars and racing in general. So you're a female race car driver. I can't think of a cooler job. Really. I mean, I always think that in my next life I'm going to be a race car driver.
Or this life.
Come on. Let's face it.
They have all kinds of amateur racing opportunities. Go-kart tracks.
Well, I had a go-kart when I was younger.
Sonoma is not too far away from here, so we may have to take a pit stop there after we're done.
I had a go-kart in first grade, so... Anyway, so
She's thinking back.
went there. So how did you decide to get into racing? What was did you just say, I like driving fast, all these tickets are going to pay off, I'm gonna go into racing? Like, how did that start for you?
It started in kind of an opposite way of most people. It's either family related for most drivers, or, they start in go-karts when they're 4 and they get really into it. But for me, I was always just really, really curious at a young age. I was taking apart, remote controls, computers, anything I could get my hands on, and eventually started working on cars. So when I was 11, I started taking apart cars, got really into the mechanical side of trucks, cars, anything. And I didn't find out that racing was really a sport until I was about 13. And I started go-kart racing and won my first championship my very first year and got hooked. For me, it was the mechanical, working on cars side and the competition all wrapped in one, which was perfect for me.
And she was so immersed in it that you graduated early from high school to just get a jump start on it.
Yeah, I felt like once I found this sport and, my intense passion for it and drive for, pursuing it, I, felt that I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I did everything to graduate high school when I was 16 and moved to Florida to start school for engineering and pursue my racing career.
And you said was it your first race, or one of your first races? Was it at Pikes Peak Raceway?
Yes, I know we were talking about that earlier. The very first time I was in a race car, aside from go-karts, was at Pikes Peak International Raceway. So
I've been there and I've driven the pace car. That's right.
No, it's an awesome track. I think they're bringing it back into circulation for NASCAR this year.
Oh, good.
I think so. But yep, that was one of my very first car experiences, and before that, it had just been go-karts.
So when you decided, okay, this is it, I'm gonna try this industry. What was it a challenge being female? I mean, I think the obvious answer would probably be, I would think yes, right? I mean, you probably weren't.
I'd say the much bigger challenge is the fact that I'm a first generation racer. My family wasn't into it, and it's a very financially intensive sport. I mean, one day of practice in my sport can be upwards of $50,000, and my family's in the military. I'm a military brat. Is really diving headfirst into an industry that doesn't run my family. They don't have all the contacts that other drivers may have, and a very, very expensive sport. So, the first thing I really needed to learn was business and fundraising and turning my racing career into a company.
So let's talk about that, because I would say racing specifically of all sports is so brand intensive, right? I mean, you've got branding everywhere, and the brands are, racing fans are very loyal to their brands too. I mean, so how did you go about that impetus to get started? The part where you said, okay, I obviously need to have a sponsor. How did you approach sponsors being new? I mean, what's the technique to actually get a sponsor to pay for your dream?
Yeah, in the beginning, it's just very much looking at an overview of the entire industry. I mean, every year, $78 billion is spent in the racing sponsorship arena. It's a $78 billion market. All types of Fortune 500 companies or national companies are taking part in it. And it's really just figuring out, all right, which series can I align most with the demographic that would make sense for a sponsor to want to team up with me to reach that demographic. Every series, IndyCar is different from Formula One, which is different from NASCAR, which is different from Rallycross. I mean, you have to figure out which demographic you're going to go after and then know the right companies that would want to reach that.
I want to drill down on that and talk about literally what that means. And, we had a conversation before the show about brand loyalty and how fans are. I also want to talk about how racing in general is getting in staying in front of a younger audience and how are they continuing to get, the younger fans. I want to talk about both of those things. But first, I want to thank a sponsor of Marketing Mavericks, which is Squarespace. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace.com. Your brand needs a professional website. Now it's easier than ever. Squarespace recently launched the latest version of their platform, Squarespace 7. They completely redesigned interface makes it a snap to create your own modern website or online portfolio. In fact, we'll talk about this in a bit, but our guest has used Squarespace. Kim was telling me before the show, Extreme Tech Challenge, huge site, was a Squarespace user. So we'll talk about that. What Squarespace offers is live editing on one screen. Making changes is easier and clearer and simpler and more intuitive. Anybody can use it. Plus, you can see your changes and how they'll look on tablets and mobile devices. Squarespace introduced 14 new gorgeous designs. Now you have over 30 to choose from. The templates are designed for specific professions. So if you're in racing, maybe, I don't know, you can find one that's racing related. Squarespace has designed templates including e-commerce, artists, architects, restaurants, and weddings. Cover Pages is the new Squarespace 7. Choose from 10 new templates. You can add these to any existing Squarespace site. It's perfect for creating quick landing pages and for your brand, corporate identity, or to promote a new product. So for just $10, you can pick from thousands of professional Getty images. You want to use good pictures on your site. Don't steal stuff off of Google or whatever. You want to use something great. And Squarespace offers that for just $10. So start a free 2-week trial with no credit card required and start building your website today. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure to use offer code MM to get 10% off and show your support of Marketing Mavericks. We thank Squarespace for their support of Marketing Mavericks. Squarespace. Start here, go anywhere. And that might be go racing or go to Extreme Tech Challenge. So you used Squarespace, right?
I did. And I did not know that Squarespace was actually your sponsor. So this is not a sponsorship pitch or anything. This is just real life. We were using WordPress and it was absolutely impossible to update on the go. I don't know what WordPress is doing in terms of updates, but I still have a lot of trouble updating my blog on the go. So a couple friends of ours, Dan and Olga, who are the founders of a company called Epic List, said, hey, you know what? We use Squarespace all the time. We'll just design you a new blog using Squarespace. And it's beautiful. There you go. There's Richard Branson. He's my boss.
Hey, Richard.
So actually, if you go up to the top of the site and you click on blog, and then you'll actually see that's the regular site for WordPress versus this is the Squarespace site, which is literally, if you go back up to the top, you'll see, more about and the
design is really clean. I mean, I remember when you actually had to hire a web designer, and now it's just so easy. Anybody can use it. I mean, you were saying that before the show. They really have made the perfect world of a really nice. Oh, there's Ben Parr.
He's actually one of our advisors.
Squirrel. A really clean, professional, super looking site. And they've made it easy. So, I can't imagine a better combination. So, but I just thought we would share that to our audience because, we have a true example of a Squarespace user. Okay, so we were talking about racing, and we also talked about the auto show, right? So the North American International Auto Show, it's still taking place in Detroit. And two of the things that kept coming up were millennials, right? And how are we targeting younger people? And I would think racing in the past few years had a challenge, Colette, with really getting in front of the younger audience, getting, the fans excited, not just the drivers, but, like you said, it's a lot of his family, but getting the audience to be interested. I mean, is that changed? Are they able to get in front of a younger audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely depends what series you're looking at specifically. They're each very, very different with the demographics that they're, approaching or targeting. But in kind of taking a step back, when you think about the marketing opportunities and exposure opportunities for companies in racing, think of any other sport that literally logos are thrown in the audience's face nonstop, and the audience love it. Like, they're like, hey, that's the GoDaddy car, or hey, that's the Tibco race car. I mean, there is no other sport that brands are that relevant and important to. And I think that's one amazing that somehow automotive racing has twisted people into thinking that, we're putting ads in your face for it, but you like it. And when you look at the different demographics, I think the one series with definitely a much younger audience would have to be the Global Rallycross series. They've teamed up with Red Bull. They're putting a lot into digital. They're doing the crazy stunt shows.
What?
Red Bull. Yes.
I don't, they're not a sponsor. I do like it.
I think, Red Bull has such an amazing brand behind them. It does capture millennials'
They're not afraid
attention.
of marketing anywhere.
They're not.
And they're not afraid to experiment.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not. And that's why, I think the partnership between Red Bull and the Global Rallycross series has exploded. They're part of the X Games, which already has a very young demographic. And I think in terms, if you were looking at a series and wanted to get the youngest demographic, it would definitely be with GRC. They do crazy stunts. I think the type of racing is also more favorable for younger audiences. It's not, hours of racing like NASCAR or IndyCar, or even maybe an hour like Formula One. So it's much shorter sprint races. It's intense. It's crazy. And it captures younger audiences' attention, I think, the best of any of the series.
But I think in terms of that, and what I've noticed from some of the drivers in that versus NASCARs, I think that the drivers have a lot to learn in terms of adding value for the sponsors. And there's nothing like a NASCAR driver in the way in which they're able to incorporate any sponsor into any soundbite, no matter what question they're asked. And I think that there's a lot to learn with the younger drivers and in the other racing sports to maintain the sponsorship and to get more dollars in, because there's so much brand loyalty in NASCAR and in IndyCar and in Formula One. They need that to transcend into the younger up-and-coming auto sports.
Let me ask this question. I think, again, it's potentially an obvious answer, but how important is it for the race car driver to maintain their, their brand of whoever it is that's sponsoring them in the way that they carry themselves? So when they're interviewed or they do something in their personal life, maybe they make a mistake, or maybe they make a mistake on the track and they get some bad publicity. How important is that to the brand sponsorship relationship?
It's incredibly important. I mean, there have been issues that, individual drivers have lost sponsors if they've done something inappropriate, whether it be on the track or off the track in their personal life. I mean, everything, especially nowadays, every part of a driver needs to be positive for the brand that you're working with, and that's why they're going to invest in you. I mean, they are giving you money because they know that you can help promote their product. You're beneficial for their business, and they're beneficial for you as well. You wouldn't be doing what you love without them. Yeah.
Well, you talked about Danica Patrick, I think maybe before the show. I'm not sure if we've been talking so long, but you talked about how and I tell you what, people love her. First off, she's female, so I think there's a lot of support. Just being breaking into, being a female in a pretty much male-dominated sport. But you said she's not super personable. And I think that it comes across in marketing.
She's very sweet, so I want to make sure it's clear. I've interviewed her a number of times.
Okay.
She's a very sweet girl, but incredibly reserved. And there were a lot of questions that I had asked her about her personal life, because when you think of Tony Stewart and you think of Jeff Gordon, they're incredibly personable. They share so much. There's not much that they really hide, and that's part of their personalities. And I think that's why people really engage with them and feel like they're almost family and become so loyal to not only them, but they're brands. For
Right.
example, with Jeff Gordon, you wouldn't dream of drinking a Coke if you were a Jeff Gordon fan. If you're a Jimmy Johnson fan, you would not even dream of going to Home Depot. You would go to Lowe's, for example. And so with Danica, I don't think she drove as many people, and this is only my personal opinion,
Right.
to GoDaddy. I think GoDaddy kind of made her, but it's up to her from that point to be able to carry it from there. And I don't think she's been able to carry it from there because I don't hear as much about Danica.
There definitely
today.
wasn't with GoDaddy. I mean, there definitely wasn't maybe as much personable involvement with the brand that there could have been.
Right.
Maybe with a different driver, more personable driver. But what she's done with them has been great, and even just her as a driver in general, breaking into the industry, literally is probably the only well-known female driver right now. Like she's done a lot in
Next
her
to you,
career.
Colette.
Next to me. I think she's done a lot in her career, and I don't know if NASCAR was the right choice, and that's why, there hasn't been, as much going on with her lately, but, her career in IndyCar definitely, had an impact, so.
But I definitely think, and what I love about Colette, so when I was first introduced to Colette, what I really loved about her, because I've been covering racing since 2001, and what I loved about Colette compared to Danica is that she was so open and so personable and so friendly and so warm and so appreciative of everyone and everything around her. And I think that's the difference, that I think the next steps for Danica, if she wants to truly maintain her brand and, get out there and actually take it to the next level, is she needs to start opening up and sharing all of who she is. And it's gonna, the bad's got to come with the good. And she's got to just accept it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think for every driver, too, the standards now are so much higher than they used to be. I mean, you'll see, back in the day, F1 drivers would smoke a cigarette right before they hopped in their car or, take a shot of whiskey. I mean, it was such a different game
that seems
back
to make
then.
sense. Drinking and
I mean, it was like the Wild
It was a
West.
thing.
I mean, racing wasn't as structured. It wasn't as corporate. There wasn't as many huge corporations now. It wasn't a $78 billion market then. And the expectations for a driver are way higher. You have to be very competitive and amazing at what you do, one of the best in the world. You have to be able to market not only yourself, but the companies. You have to be good at talking. You have to be good at presenting and good in your life. And hopefully within all of that, there's also an inspirational undertone. I mean, there's just a lot now that, sponsors would look for, that there are a lot of things that a driver has to be to get those sponsors.
So what would your advice be to somebody who's just getting started, maybe like yourself, who doesn't have family in the business and they just have a passion for racing? What would your advice be to them to get started?
Learn business, learn it fast, and be good at it, and find what makes you as an individual and a driver unique. Find what makes you more valuable of a sponsorship or a partnership than the next guy, and as well as being incredible and incredibly amazing at driving.
How important is winning? I mean, we're talking a lot about the brands and we're talking about, everything else, but is winning a part of that? I mean, does that...
Dale Earnhardt Jr. That's all I have to say. I love him. And I have a great Dale Earnhardt Jr. story. And he is incredibly warm. He's not as, easy to, approach just because he's very well guarded. But one of my favorite stories is when I was covering racing, had my own racing show here in the Bay Area. And literally at the time, back in like 2001, 2002, hardly any women were in there. And in fact, when we would go meet the guys at the haulers on Friday after qualifying, they would all have their 5 minutes. And I had gotten to, Junior's hauler before anyone else. But as soon as everyone finished up with Tony Stewart, they rushed over and literally mobbed me. These big guys I got sucked into the crowd. And next thing I know, I just remember someone tugging at my arm. And I was like, what's going on here? And I just felt my arm being pulled all the way up to the front. I'm like, okay, I just got to go with it because it was a tight grip. And it was Junior pulling me all the way to the front. And he grabbed my microphone and he said, what's your question? And he answered my question first. And I thought,
wow,
that was really cool. Very, very good guy. And that's just the way he is. And I think that, yes, his dad was a legend, huge. Mm-hmm. But I think that Junior's been able to maintain the name and the credibility and the fan is because of his warmth and generosity and appreciation for all of his fans. So you don't need to, I think he just won a race, recently? in the past year, but not that many races.
There's definitely, critique about, hey, do you need to be winning all the time? But, I think you can have an incredibly successful marketing and sponsorship program being either very competitive and at least running in the beginning of the pack and winning. If you're behind and you're always coming in last, that is not going to help you. That's not going to help your sponsor. You should train a little bit more. But I think there's so many different ways to have successful sponsorships, marketing, activations, all that within racing. And, being number one doesn't necessarily make the rest of that fall together. It's many different parts that, include all of that to add up to an amazing program.
And even though, for example, with Jeff Gordon hasn't, he's not the winningest driver right now, just in terms of every single weekend. And Jimmy Johnson is just killing it over and over and over again. And yet Jeff Gordon still has a bigger brand.
There you have it. And so there's still hope for me. I can, when I'm not here at Twit.
Sonoma, it's literally maybe 20 minutes away. No excuses.
I can totally. That would just be a dream, right? So I want to talk a little bit about Extreme Tech Challenge. What is that?
So the Extreme Tech Challenge, I think it's poised to become the world's largest startup competition. It's brought to you by MyTai Global, which is an organization that is all about educating entrepreneurs around the world and empowering them to not only do big things, in technology, but also to live an amazing lifestyle and just live and love life and give back to the community. And the Extreme Tech Challenge was in partnership with MyTai Global and Sir Richard Branson, and so as well as CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. So we had nearly 2,000 applicants and from more than 100 countries. And the semifinals were held at CES this year. Gary Shapiro, the president of CEA. We had the scientific advisor to Bill Gates, who is Boris Mcnicholas. We had the former CEO of Priceline, Jeff Hoffman. We had, of course, everybody knows Robert Scoble. They were all judges at CES. Fire marshal was called in. There were too many people that were in the room. We had top 10 finalists. They included Breathometer, which I'm sure you're familiar with them. They have the breath analysis platform, which won really big on ABC's Shark Tank. You had Doctor on Demand, which is Dr. Phil's, one of his companies, Virtual Doctor's Office. Those were the top two. The third one is Wanderoo, which I mentioned earlier, the online bus and train travel booking site. And they were just great companies. And the top three are going to be flown to Necker Island to pitch Sir Richard Branson, and as well as Lars Rasmussen, the co-inventor of Google Maps, who's also the director of engineering for Facebook, as well as Young Sohn, who is the president of Samsung, who is looking for future digital partnerships from startups.
Wow, that was a
that was a
mouthful of
extreme
talent, that's for sure.
Explanation.
Well, that was good.
It's been amazing. And we even got, when we were there at CES, we got shout outs from Nick Cannon. Even Shaq knew who we were. So right now we're talking to Shaq. Shaq wants to be a judge.
Oh, there you go. And Robert Scoble was in the mix with all these guys too. Are you going to his party this weekend?
I heard about it, and actually a friend of mine has this company called Z Cocktails, and Robert has requested that Z serve their cocktails to him at his party.
It's going to be epic.
I think it will be
about that off air.
Epic.
So that's incredible. I want to talk a little bit more about that, but I want to thank another one of our sponsors, which is Audible. Audible.com is the leading provider of audiobooks with more than 150,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature, including nonfiction, fiction, periodicals, all kinds of books. And I'm a super big fan. I download books all the time. For listeners of Marketing Mavericks, Audible is offering a free audiobook to give you a chance to try out their service. One audiobook you might want to consider downloading is, I'm thinking, Amy Poehler's Yes, Please. Jeffrey here recommends it, and I'm a big fan of hers. So to download this audiobook for free or another one of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/mm. That's audiblepodcast.com/mm. And we thank Audible for their support of Marketing Mavericks. And I am a big fan of Audible. I actually really like Audible for sure. So I never knew I would like audiobooks so much. I like reading books, but
I like ones that give you a call to action. I'm not just about storylines. I like ones that help you improve. And a couple of my favorites, Carmine Gallo is one of my favorite authors of all time. He wrote How to Present Like Steve Jobs, and he just wrote How to Talk Like Ted. So he can pretty much, just by reading this book, he can turn anyone into the most amazing speaker. It's fantastic. Those are my two favorite books.
Oh, I will. Well, so
Audiobooks.
I'm going to have to follow you and your Audible request line. There you go. So I have to ask the question. I wanted to ask this before we went to break, but before we went to commercial. But so Richard Branson, what's it like to work for him?
Well, he's amazing. He hasn't been as actively involved. But what I loved about him is just recently, before CES, he asked me to send him some notes just on what to expect from CES and to give him the live links. Monster Products actually sponsored the live stream, and so he wanted to put that in there. And we also had a People's Choice Awards sponsored by a company called Boosted Boards, which is the lightest electric vehicle. Oh my gosh, these skateboards are so amazingly cool. And that you can even go uphill on them. And you still get a workout because you still have to get the balance, right? But he ended up doing his research on the web and finding a quote from me from a press release recently and putting a quote from me in his blog post. And I wasn't looking for any sort of credit for the whole thing. I was just like, hey, come and watch the show at CES, see the top 3 that are going to be selected to go to Necker Island. And he went through, and he's all about giving credit to everybody else. And he's pretty remarkable. And this was the biggest surprise. So we asked him to tape just a message congratulating the top 3. And in his message to the top 3, he said, actually, as much as I want to see the top 3, I am so impressed with the top 10. I want to invite all of you to come to the island. So all of the 10 top semifinalists are going to get to go to Necker Island.
That's going to be awesome. That was going to be epic, I should say, actually. How fun would that be? I don't know. We're talking about 2 epic things here. Robert Scoble's birthday party and going to Necker Island, right?
No big
deal. So you're Colette, the co-founder of Tech Drive. What is Tech Drive?
The short version of what Tech Drive is basically a more techie, top gear 2.0. So basically we found this niche in the space that, automotive is becoming very startup centric. They're incorporating a lot of new technologies just because that is what millennials and everyone is demanding in their everyday life. And Tech Drive came out of the fact that we want to focus on that. We want to be the people to own that space. The green and sexy is one of our categories. We have a travel space and everything innovation in that.
So is this a distraction or a compliment to being like an awesome race car driver?
I think it's a compliment. We're already getting millions of views from all over the world, and we really haven't done much marketing. Me and my 2 co-founders just decided to push this live about half a year ago, and it's already just been growing organically. And we definitely want to, hopefully move this more into video content and even a mini series, and maybe Tech Drive will be on TV instead of Top Gear sometime. So we'll see.
And what I think, it really is complimentary. And we were talking about marketing strategy. It's brilliant what she's doing because she's establishing her credibility in the sport before she even gets in the car. And I think that's huge. It's about building your brand. I mean, I don't care what area or industry you're in. It's all about creating a content strategy right now, building your credibility and pushing yourself out there.
Yeah, and we really want our content to be fun. We want to incorporate stuff like you'll see the channels that just do car reviews, but we want to maybe do the car review and really focus on the tech that's drawn into that, or really focus on the tech that we could bring into it, and even possibly mix in some stunt driving every now and then and having fun with cars. So
and maybe seeing if the new F-150 with the aluminum body can hold up in a tug of war.
Let's see how much we can push it. I actually have a video right now on my YouTube, Colette Davis Racing, where I did my very first truck tug of war, which honestly, I didn't even know that was a thing until I guess I filmed it in June. And it's really literally I'm basically doing a selfie, drive doing the tug of war. It's nothing professional. But it was amazing. And just videos like that are fun, engaging. Oh, no, you're going to find it.
It's our YouTube. I was scouring your...
yeah, it's the last one on the right side on the top row.
There you go.
There it is.
It's really embarrassing. But this is my very first truck tug of war. So that was really fun. And, that's why we definitely are going to start focusing on digital content and videos coming up soon for Tech Drive. Right now, we've been
look at that.
Mainly...
Here's your selfie.
Gosh, no, that's it. Yeah.
Nice. This was what you were tugging. Okay.
Yeah, this is my very, very first truck tug of war.
You did this with Julius from Bellamy Hair, right?
Yes, Julius from Bellamy Hair. He actually just got his Ram literally 2 weeks before I showed up, and we pulled that Toyota the same day. Ooh. Less than 24 hours, we got the Toyota off the lot. and brought it to film this video. And he was shipping the Toyota to his brother in Australia, and I'm sure his brother appreciated this.
How did you convince the companies to allow you to do this?
So these are his cars.
Those are his?
I honestly, it was his idea. I've never done this. I don't really want to do
Look
this.
at your face.
It was just fun. So it was worth it.
Oh, I can smell the burnt.
Did you use a GoPro or anything in that?
No,
Is that what you were
I'm
using?
literally selfieing myself. Like I'm acting like I'm
Were you using
videoing
a selfie stick? Is that
no,
the thing?
no,
Okay.
I needed one of those. I just got one of those for Christmas.
Did you?
Yes, I did. I will use it next time.
It's embarrassing what our culture has evolved to in that space. But yeah, but you obviously needed one. So, they're suggesting in chat room suggesting you get a GoPro for that. So
I
that's
know,
the next time.
I know, I will. I'm definitely that's kind of just we're going to be moving Tech Drive into focusing a lot on video. Right now, we're just editorial. We're online, up to date content, working on that 24/7, and it's been great. We built up a great audience through that, and our next move is really doing shows that are a more techie top gear, basically.
Techie Top Gear. I love it. So I want to thank you both for coming on the show today and talking about this intersection of automotive tech and marketing. And I'm kind of excited. I mean, I'm thinking I'm going to be a race car driver. I'm going to, I don't know. And I have a 2003 vehicle. So I'm definitely, don't want to, jinx anything, but I could definitely be in the market for something new. And I'll take your advice on that, Kim. We've been joined today by Kim Mcnicholas. She is the executive director of Scream Tech Challenge. And congratulations on that. I'm excited to see what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
And Colette Davis, pro racer and co-founder of Tech Drive. So if somebody wants to follow you, Kim, what's the best way they can do that?
At Kimbee, Kymbee. But also, I'm much more of a Facebooker. So if you find me on Facebook, I'll add you on Facebook. And I love interacting with people on Facebook. I just think it's more personable.
Facebook is, right? It is.
It really is.
And how about you, Colette?
Yeah, Twitter for me is just at Colette Davis. That's Collete Davis. And Facebook is just Colette Davis Racing.
All right. Well, thank you, both of you ladies, for joining me and in studio. I feel so privileged. The next time, maybe we'll actually be out on the track.
That should be your follow-up video.
That would be
We'll
fun.
see if we can take you out after this and
Yes,
see if you have a
speed
cool
dating
video.
with Life 360.
Oh, we do have that video. That will be interesting to show that Anthony worked on. So
Anthony.
there it
it
is.
is. Look how quick he is at that.
Do that. It's magic. But this is incredible. This is an awesome event.
Can we embarrass Anthony for a second?
Oh, I hope so.
Before we go. So when I was working at Forbes magazine, I worked with Anthony for 5 years, and he is like the expert. If anyone wants to hire him for like literally racing videos, he's like the ultimate. He will go above and beyond to
You
get
trained
the best
him
stuff.
well.
Literally,
Like, it was insane.
you got to ask him about, we should ask him about what he did to get Elon Musk. So we were interviewing Elon Musk, and Elon Musk says, hey, do you want to be in the chase car and follow me? I'm going to show you what this Tesla can do. Can he tell that story about him hanging out the window? And I was literally trying to
I
hold
don't
on.
think it was
Me
legal,
holding on
so
to his
maybe we
shirt.
shouldn't talk about it.
Oh, you just outed him on some maybe not so.
How many times, Anthony, were you hanging out the window for a story on racing?
More than I can count.
The lovely thing, when you were shooting developer speed dates, you actually don't know this, but when you were telling me to do these like drift movements and land here, yep, that was the first time I tried it. So you definitely could have been in danger. Like I made it work, and I just acted like, sure, I'll put the car there and spin it around. It was my first time doing that, so I can confess that now.
Oh, there you go.
It was great.
Yeah, it turned out
Executive
well.
speed date. So what we didn't actually talk about that. Do you want to mention that real quick while he's showing the
Yeah, so I've done a lot of racing events with executives, influencers, media. This one I was invited to be the driver for developer speed dates with Life 360, and essentially they're taking potential CTOs that are up for hire and CEOs that absolutely need them, and basically putting them in the back of the race car, and we're giving them each one lap to pitch themselves. The CTO is pitching the CEO on why he should be hired, and the CEO is pitching the CTO on why he should come work for him. So it was great.
because we need more pitching scenarios
Yes.
apparently. But I think that's cool. I would
Hires
totally
were
do it.
made. Hires were made after that, and
Well.
I think that was the most genius recruiting model I've ever seen.
There you go. You heard it right here on Marketing Mavericks. That's right, Colette. Well, I would totally do that, and I think it's a fun idea. So thank you, both of you ladies, for coming on, and thank you, Anthony Nielsen, for your supreme technical directing.
We heard Anthony.
All right, guys. Let's wrap this up.
I love it.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Marketing Mavericks. And if you want to hear the whole show, you should tune in live if you're listening to this later on podcast. And if you want to reach out to me, if you want to follow me on social media, you can. I'm at Tonya Hall Radio on Twitter. I know it still says radio. I'm working on that. You can also find me on Facebook by searching for me, Tonya Hall. I'm all over the place. Or maybe you want to email me your ideas about the show. I do read your emails, I promise. And they're really long, but they're actually really informative. So thank you guys. And you can email at mavericks@twit.tv. Thanks again, everybody. And until next week, have a good one.